So today I come with more of a question than I do an insight or an answer, but maybe it'll turn into that. I've talked a lot in these videos about how raising my son drives a lot, not all, but a lot of how I think about thinking better, being better as a person. And, in that vein, I think about often, what are the key things I'm trying to teach him? And in many ways, it's more of a principles-based approach where I don't want to teach him facts. I don't want to teach him views or beliefs on topics. I want him to form them on his own. Even values to an extent. I mean, I think there's certain values in terms of not hurting people, trying to do the right thing, but they're so ambiguous. They become very subjective that even sometimes the values you try and teach, you can think of different things throughout history in theory where, certain religions or certain ideologies are meant to be positive ones, but they get twisted into negative ones. So even values can be tricky because I don't know that they're principle based enough. So I was thinking about it, and in many ways, what I'm trying to teach him, no surprise, is a way of thinking, almost like an underlying foundation of logical thinking. I call it a source code, but I don't even know if that's the applicable term for that. But whatever belief he forms, whatever views he has, whatever facts he takes in, whatever values he ultimately determines are important for him, I think my measure of success would be, later on in life when he's older, when he's at that later age, when he's developed his values and his beliefs and his views on life, to be able to have a conversation with him and understand the why and the next level why and the next level why behind it. Because I may or may not always agree with the things he decides to do in life. And that's just what it is. I accept that as a parent. That's just going to be what it is. And there may be some things where I have concern about him. Like, are you making the right choice? Is it putting you in some sort of danger? Is it really what's best for you? And I think the best I can hope for is to be able to have that conversation with him and have him show me his work, as I often talk about here, right? If you make a decision, if you're taking an action, the hope is you've thought through it logically, rationally. And again, logically, that includes emotions, that includes your identity, that includes, love, passion for life, all those different things. It's not just a cold logic, but that he can explain that to me in a way in which I could say, okay, I understand it. I see your work. I understand your thinking. I can empathize with it, right? I can relate to it. I still may not agree with it. I still may think it may be a mistake, but at least I can trust that at that underlying foundation of logic that you have, that foundational source code that says, hey, at least you're running it through the right system of analysis, and you may come out with a different answer, but I trust in your process. So it's those principles and that process of how you think about it, not so much the output of what comes from it that matters. And I said in the beginning, it's more of a question than it is an insight. The question I have is that the right approach? I think conceptually it makes sense, but when I say that, I wonder if I'm not still pushing a value system and an ideology on him. This idea that you need to be able to break down the math behind your thinking, show your work, show the inputs, show the analysis, show the calculation, show the logic behind it. Perhaps that's just a language or a way of thinking that works for me. And even putting that onto him to say, hey, that's the minimum I'm looking for. That's what success would look like, I guess, more so, better said. Is that already imposing something on him, changing the way he might naturally think? Maybe, in many ways he's more artistic than I am, whether it be music or, literal, art, pictures, paintings, all different things like that. So maybe his mind just doesn't work the way mine does. And there's no reason for me to believe mine is superior in any way or my way of thinking is superior. It just makes sense to me, possibly. So I find myself even wondering if that's the right approach to expect that of him. I think if done the right way, I think if said, it doesn't have to follow the math as in which I see it. I just need you to be able to explain it to me. I need you to be able to tell me why, which is what I always tell him. Anything you do, just know the why behind it. And it might be your why. It might be a why put in a certain language or a framing that doesn't immediately resonate with me. But if I learn anything from this journey and this process, it should be the ability to have the humility and the empathy to understand a different way of thinking, a different approach, a different process, and still be able to make sense of it for me. He doesn't have to speak my language. Maybe better said, I need to figure out a way to speak his. should be the approach. I still think underneath that there's some principles. Again, being able to explain your why that I want to instill in him. I want him to be thoughtful in whatever way in which thoughtful works for him. I'll give him some suggestions and some ideas that work for me. And perhaps as, he's 6 right now, going on 7, we'll figure it out more as he grows, how his mind works, how it ticks. Still trying to identify those blind spots, that might exist like I do for myself or anybody else. But trying to more understand his language in that. So maybe that's the insight. Maybe that's the takeaway. Or maybe it's not, right? Maybe there are some things. Maybe I'm taking too hands off of an approach, too laissez-faire, too saying, I'm not going to instill hardened values or views or belief systems in him because I think there's risk in that. Maybe that's a bad experiment. Maybe he's going to become somebody who doesn't really believe in anything or not really know how to do that or be too indecisive. These are the things I think about that I don't have clear answers to, but I take some, solace in the fact that being thoughtful about it is probably the best you can do to some extent. There might not be any true answers to this. It's just taking it in, assessing it, understanding it, adapting when you feel like that's the right thing to do, showing my work, I guess, and how I'm trying to be a father and how I'm trying to raise him. So best I could do is continue along this journey of questioning, thinking, trying to be better.